Hello everyone, George Packard with Family Lawn and Landscape, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about educating yourself. This whole topic is surrounded upon the fact that you need to educate yourself in life, and I'll tell you how I came about this. So I realized that there will be no change unless you change your routine. Now that's not my quote, somebody else came up with that quote, but it made a lot of sense to me the other day. There will be no change unless you change your routine. Why are we even talking about change? I'll tell you why. If you're not happy where you're at in life right now, you need to change things. How do you change them? Right here. This is how you change them. You start and ends right here in your own mind, okay? So, for an example, let's look at some of these statistics that just, when I heard this the other day, I was floored by it. They said that 68% of Americans couldn't come up with $1,000 on the spot if they needed to. 68% couldn't come up with $1,000 on the spot if they needed it. 50% could not come up with $500. Now, to me, that's devastating. I'm shocked by that. I'm shocked by those numbers. So you mean half the Americans couldn't come up with $500, okay, on the spot like that. So I started to think about it, and I really think about it. I started to look around my town and some of the things that I saw out there. I could see this. I could see where they came up with that statistic. So I'm going to look at the fact that most people live paycheck to paycheck. And that's the way it is. If you don't own your own business, if you work for somebody else, you're always living paycheck to paycheck. That's just the way it is, you know. Not much you can do about that. But, you know, life is not fair. A lot of people think, you know, I had a shitty life. And where I'm going with this, guys, is there's a lot of you out there that are in the lawn care industry because you couldn't do it somewhere else. You got into this because you didn't know what else to do. You know, it's an entry-level thing that you can get into, and you don't need a whole ton of smarts to get into this business, and that's why there's so many guys in this business, okay? You're not required to go get licensing, and you're not required to spend $10,000, you know, to get your insurance and all those type of things. There's very little regulation on lawn care companies, which is why most people get involved with this, okay? It's easy to get involved in lawn care. So, when we talk about life not being fair and people getting into the lawn care industry, I'll tell you what comes to mind with me. I've had good friends that were very smart. I had one guy that was actually pulling a friend out with a pickup truck, and he had a chain strapped on both bumpers. The chain broke, flew up, hit him in the side of the head, crushed his skull. Now he can't remember hardly anything, and we gave him a job for mowing. This guy was very, very intelligent. You know, he had his own fabrication business, and he was doing really well. When that accident happened to him, he just turned to crap. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't remember anything. Then I gave him a job mowing lawns, and this guy had a multi-million-dollar business he was running prior to this. I gave him a job mowing lawns, and he would forget what he was doing while he was out in the middle of the lawn. He would forget. He'd walk to the truck to get something, you know, a trimmer or whatever, and he forgot it, and he'd walk to the back of the house and get back there and not even know why he was there. So that's what I mean when I talk about how life is not fair. Everybody has things that aren't fair. You know, is it fair that my hair falls out, okay? Whatever. It is what it is. Is it fair that I'm not 6 feet tall? Okay, whatever. Is it fair that I'm not built like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Whatever. There's a million things, you know, but I'm very lucky because that I am still here. I mean, I had a lot of brushes with death. So everybody has a lot of things that have come up in their life. You're not alone. Everybody has gone through a lot of these things in their life. So keep that in mind. Yeah, life's not fair, but so what? You move on. A lot of life nowadays is, to me, is teaching yourself, educating yourself on things. So when I talk about that, I'm going to start with my experience in high school. So I was 18 years old. My wife was 16 years old. I had gotten her pregnant right away, and we ended up raising kids. We were babies, raising babies. So it was a very quick, eye-opening experience for us, not something that we were ready for at all. So my dad hooked us up in this trailer house right next door to our farm, and that's where we lived, and eventually we bought that from my dad. Okay, but both of us had to drop out of school, and we were raising kids. It was terrible. It was very frustrating. Thank God I had good parents to help me out. Then I got through with high school, and I went into auto body. I got my degree in auto body. I thought that's what I wanted to do. Then I decided to change out of auto body because there really wasn't much money in it back in the day. And I went into police science because I always wanted to be a policeman. So then I got through that, and I couldn't get a job in my town. I couldn't get a job anywhere. So I did get a job as a private detective. So I worked for him for a number of years. Then I worked for Kmart as a loss control manager. I did that for 13 years. I also worked construction. And then I got into like the lawn care end of things, doing it as a side job. From there, I went into landscaping. From that point, I went into starting another business up. Once that worked well, I started a garden center up. From there, we went to Florida, and I opened up a lawn care business there, then a landscaping business there as well. So there were a lot of things, and then you come back home. Now I have a vape store, and we're looking into another business as well. I'm not saying any of this to brag. I'm telling you, we had to educate ourselves. My wife and I had to really think about things and study everything we could. So while all my friends were out at the bars and partying and carrying on, I had my nose buried in books and YouTube videos, magazines, anything I could get my hands on that would teach me how to make my business better, how to make the lawn care business better. I really enjoyed mowing grass. That's what I wanted to do. I knew that. And the only way I could make that possible is if I made good money doing it. So I had to find a way to make good money doing it because it wasn't working what I was doing, okay? So that being said, nothing would have been possible without self-education. And here's why. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, like I told you. So, I mean, at one point in my life, I was living under park benches, okay? So I was homeless. And the only way I was able to turn that around is by learning things. I watched tons and tons of YouTube videos. The Lawn Care Millionaire, I think I know his videos word for word and back and forth, you know, forwards and backwards. So I studied that like crazy. Everything I could read, all the trade magazines, I was getting them, ordering them all the time. I was reading everything I could, all the books I could. And I had to educate myself, and this is where I'm at today. Now, I bettered myself because of that. I didn't have the money to go to college. I went to tech school for a couple of different things, which cost thousands of dollars to go through those things, which took years to pay off, and student loans and things like that. But it was all about educating. So if you're happy where you're at, and I get this all the time about solo operators and versus having a bigger company, you know, everything is okay when you're a solo operator, or so you think. Here's a good prime example. I just had an insurance lady come to our house the other day and was talking to us about, well, what would happen if you got cancer or something? You're out in the sun all the time. What would happen? It would be devastating. She's telling me stories about how it devastates the families, and I could see it. You know, like my dad had, you know, prostate cancer, and so anyway, it was very traumatic for all of us. You know, well, just thankfully he was retired from dairy farming at the time. But what would happen if that happened to me in my business right now? You know, I'd be screwed. You know, I would just be screwed if I had to start taking chemotherapy and things like that, and I'd be so sick I couldn't work. Well, how would money come in then? What would happen to my family at that point? Okay, well, they would be devastated, and it'd be very traumatic for them, and they would probably end up with absolutely nothing. And I realized early on in life that I loved my family too much to let that happen. So what I did is I concentrated on educating myself, and my wife did the same thing, she would educate herself on all the bookwork stuff, so she's very book smart, you know, and I educated myself on how to do a trade, how to do pavers really good, how to do retaining walls, how to put in lawns and mowing grass, how to deal with customers. You know, there were a lot of things I had to learn, so that's what my focus was on. Okay, so that being said, without self-educating and having mentors around, mentors to help you learn, that's what it was all about. Today, there's more mentors available on YouTube, for example, than there are anywhere. And we never had this back in my day. I don't even think YouTube was there back in my day. But, you know, as I started getting older, then, you know, YouTube came along, and it was awesome. So, I want to leave you with this, guys. Change is not possible without the acceptance of knowing there's a problem and the will to fix it. Okay? You got to know there's a problem, and here's your problem. Your problem is you only know so much. I would love to go out there, and I would love to have $1 million in my bank account, okay? I want that to be there, and I can want it as bad as the next guy, but it's never going to happen unless I make it happen, right? It's not going to happen for me. Like a lot of my guys will sit there and buy scratch tickets at gas stations every day because they're hoping that they'll win the lottery someday and that they're going to be a millionaire that way. Well, I'm not going to hope for that. I go out and I make my luck. So hopefully you guys have learned something from this. I really, really, truly want to help everybody out there. But you've got to learn, guys, you've got to learn to listen. When people are willing to give advice, learn to listen to the advice. I'm not getting paid to do this for you guys, okay? I'm not getting a dime to share my experiences with you and to try to help you, okay? But you need to listen when people are trying to help you and then adjust, change things. If they're not good the way you're doing them right now, you need to change things to make them better, okay? So, food for thought. George Packard, Family Lawn and Landscape. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave me your comments down below as I try to answer everybody. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.